It's not too late for you to start over. And I know that the moment I say that, a quiet voice in you answers back, maybe for other women, not for me. If you heard that voice just now, this video was made for you. Because today I want to ask you to do something a little strange. I want to ask you to disappear. Not from your life, not from the people you love, from the noise, just for one season. And I want to give you what to do inside that season. 6 small practices, each one drawn from real psychology, each one gentle enough to begin this week, that together quietly rebuild a life from the inside out. Not a 5 a.m. boot camp, not hustle dressed up in new clothes. A season. The kind the women of Emberhollow have kept for longer than anyone remembers. They call it the quiet season. One more thing before we walk in. In this story, there are 6 keepers and 6 doors. But the last door is not like the others. It will not open until you have walked through the ones before it, and when we reach it, you'll understand why it had to be last. Stay with me until then. Let me tell you about a seeker named Wren. Wren did everything right. She worked the jobs. She raised what needed raising and carried what needed carrying. She was the one people called, and she answered. For decades, she answered. The sister who needed somewhere to stay. The parents at the end. The colleagues who knew that Wren would stay late, because Wren always stayed late. Somewhere in a drawer she still had the list she'd written at 26, the one with the little house by the lake on it and the book she meant to write, and one word underlined twice that she no longer let herself read. And then one ordinary morning she stood in a kitchen that had finally gone quiet, holding her tea, watching the steam rise, and thought, the life I meant to live is not here, it is somewhere else. And I don't know if I can still get to it. You may catch your own reflection in Wren, or the reflection of a woman you love. Either way, walk with her a while. Wren came to Emberhollow in the autumn, the way seekers do, not because she'd given up, but because she hadn't. And the innkeeper who took her coat told her about the old tradition. One season, 66 days, by the old count, given to visiting the keepers, 6 of them, each holding one practice, each behind their own door. Most women, the innkeeper said, spend their whole lives being needed. The quiet season is the one thing here that asks nothing of you at all, except that you come as you are and keep walking. And she said one thing more, quietly, as she handed Wren the key to a small cottage at the edge of the lanes. When you've walked the 5, the last door will find you. The first door was a green wooden gate in a high stone wall. Behind it, Wren found a woman kneeling in the cold earth, planting things that showed nothing above the soil. The garden looked, honestly, like nothing. Brown beds, bare branches, rows of what might as well have been graves. And the keeper worked on, unbothered, all through the winter, while the village walked past the wall and saw not one green thing. But every spring, and Wren would see this for herself, that garden broke open into the most astonishing bloom in Emberhollow. And the village would gasp and call it sudden. The village only ever sees the spring. The tending happens unseen. The keeper's practice is the season itself. And here is where I step out of the story for a moment, because this is real. Researchers at the University of Virginia ran a study you may have heard of. Timothy Wilson's team, published in Science in 2014. They asked people to do something absurdly simple. Sit alone in a room with their own thoughts. 6 to 15 minutes. No phone, no book, nothing. So many found it genuinely difficult that when they were given the option, a quarter of the women in the study chose to give themselves a small electric shock rather than simply sit with what was inside them. Hear that kindly. If quiet frightens you a little, you are not broken. You are normal. The philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote, nearly 400 years ago, that all of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. The noise you keep reaching for is not a character flaw, it is a very human anesthetic. But nothing new can be planted in a life that is never quiet enough to hear itself. So the first practice is this: choose a season, 66 days, not forever, a season with a gate on it. Inside it, you lower the noise. And let me be plain about what the noise is, because for most of us, it isn't loud at all. It's the news you check again at 9, though nothing has changed since 7. It's the scrolling you do sometimes without ever consciously deciding to. 20 minutes gone, standing at the kitchen bench, and you couldn't say afterwards what you saw. It's the group chat that leaves you smaller than it found you, and the running commentary of people who are not living your life and will not be there at the end of it. None of it has to be renounced forever. It just doesn't get a key to the garden. Not this season. You don't have to explain yourself either. That's the part women find hardest. The explaining. The keepers give seekers one line to say, and I'll give it to you exactly. I'm tending something this season. I'll show you in the spring. Warm, true, and complete. That's all anyone needs to know. Why 66 days? Because that number isn't folklore. In 2010, Philippa Lally and her colleagues at University College London followed ordinary people building one new daily habit and measured how long it took before the habit ran on its own, before it stopped costing willpower. The range was wide, 18 days to over 200. The average was 66. Not the 21 days the magazines promised you. 66, one season. The old count and the new research agree almost to the day, and I find that quietly wonderful. And inside the season, one daily door into stillness, and it is smaller than you think. Eckhart Tolle teaches that a single conscious breath, one breath where you are actually there for it, is enough to interrupt the whole machinery of noise. That's the entry fee, not an hour on a cushion. One breath, fully attended, once a day, inside your walled garden. Everything else in this system grows from that soil. Wren took the key and the line and began. And for the first week, I will tell you honestly, nothing happened at all, except that the world got quieter, and she could suddenly hear how loudly she spoke to herself. Which is exactly why the second keeper was next. Because into the quiet, every woman brings the one companion she cannot lower the volume on, her own idea of who she is. The next door would show Wren where that idea came from. The second door belonged to the Mapmaker, and her shop smelled of ink and old paper, and from its ceiling hung 100 maps of lives. The Mapmaker told Wren about a seeker who came to her years ago, a woman who took the long road around the Eastern Valley every single time she travelled. Hours added, every journey, for years. When the Mapmaker asked why, the woman spread out her map and pointed. Cliffs. There, drawn in careful, frightened ink. Cliffs impassable. The Mapmaker looked at the map for a long moment. Then she said, "There have been bridges there for 30 years. Who drew this map?" And the woman said, quietly, "I did, when I was 7. My friend, I want you to sit with this one, because this is the chapter the whole season turns on. You have a map. Every woman does. And on your map, there are lines you have been obeying for a very long time. Not good with money, not the creative one. That was your sister, the reliable one, the one who copes, the one who doesn't need much. Too old now, obviously, for the thing you wanted. Some of those lines are so old, they don't even read as beliefs anymore. They read as geography. You don't argue with a cliff on a map, you just take the long way round. And you have taken the long way round some part of your own life for years, so quietly, so reasonably, that you called it being realistic. And here is the question that changes everything. In whose handwriting are those lines drawn? Because some of the borders on your map were drawn by people who never asked your permission. a tired parent, a careless teacher, a voice from 40 years ago that you have mistaken all this time for your own. Carl Jung taught that we each learn early to wear a face the world will accept. He called it the persona. And that whatever we push out of sight doesn't leave us. It steers us. Unseen things drew roads on your map, and you have been faithfully walking them ever since. You cannot outgrow a woman you have never questioned. Before you ask why you want to start over, or how, there is an older question waiting underneath. Who told you what you are? You have been walking around cliffs that became bridges long ago. So here is the Mapmaker's practice, and you'll need your journal. 1 line a week, that's all. Take 1 sentence you believe about yourself. Write it at the top of the page. Then ask it 3 questions, in ink. Who drew this line? What was true then? Is it true now? Don't fight the old line. Don't argue with it. Just check the handwriting and check the date. Some lines will hold, and some you will watch dissolve on the page in front of you, cliffs turning back into bridges. 1 line a week, for a season. Wren wrote her first line that night at the small table in the cottage by lamplight. It said, "It's too late for me." She looked at it a long time. Then she asked the first question, "Who drew this line?" and found she couldn't name anyone. No one had ever actually said it to her. She had drawn it herself. And when she asked the second question, what was true then, she realized, with a small shock, that she had first believed that sentence at 35. 35. She had been telling herself it was too late for more than 20 years, and in all that time, the line had simply never been checked. The Mapmaker had told her what to do when a line dissolves like that. Don't celebrate. Don't rush to redraw a new road. Just write, underneath it, the truest sentence you can manage instead. Wren wrote, "I don't actually know what is still possible for me. No one has looked in years, and that, not affirmation, just honest open ground, is what a redrawn map looks like on the first night. But a redrawn map meets an old enemy every morning, and the third keeper keeps a shop full of them." The third door opened into a shop of mirrors, and every mirror was different. Some were bright, not clean, bright, lit from somewhere inside the glass. And near the back, covered with a cloth, was one that had gone nearly dark. The mirror maker lifted the cloth. "Mirrors take the words spoken in front of them," she said. "Speak to one cruelly for 30 years and it dims. This one belonged to a seeker who looked into it every morning and every night. And every morning and every night she said something small and unkind. She never once raised her voice. It was almost polite, and drop by drop, it put the light out." Wren asked if a dark mirror could be brightened again. The mirror maker smiled, as if she had been waiting years for the question. "A mirror grows dim or bright on the words spoken in front of it. Here is the real psychology, and it is simpler and harder than it sounds." Mel Robbins, in her book The High Five Habit, built a whole practice on one observation. You meet yourself in the mirror every morning of your life, and most women use that meeting to file a complaint. The practice is to change what happens in those 5 seconds. Meet your own eyes. Actually meet them. The way you'd meet the eyes of a friend you're glad to see. Greet yourself kindly. Robbins has people raise a hand to the glass, a high five to the woman standing there. And if that feels silly, do it once anyway. Silly is not the enemy. The enemy is 30 more years of polite, quiet unkindness at close range. And in Emberhollow, we add an evening half to the practice. The last mirror of the night matters most. Whatever is said before that one, the mirror holds till morning. Think about what usually gets said there. Teeth brushed, lamplight, tired eyes. And then the day's summing up, which for so many women is a quiet little charge sheet. What didn't get done, what was said clumsily, what the mirror itself looks like now. That is the sentence the mirror holds all night. we're going to change the last word. So, last thing, before sleep, one true and kind sentence to your own eyes. Not a fantasy. The mirror knows, and so do you. True and kind. You kept your promise today. You were patient with your mother on the phone. You began. Some nights the truest kind thing available will be small. You came back. Say that one then. Let it be the last word of the day, instead of the old one. Wren stood in front of her cottage mirror that first morning, and could not, at first, hold her own gaze for 5 seconds. If that happens to you, let it be information, not verdict. It is a measure of how long the old voice has been speaking, nothing more. By the 3rd week, she could look. By the 6th, the woman in the glass had started, faintly, to shine back. I want to pause the story here, we're halfway through the season, and ask you for one small brave thing. Somewhere below this video, right now, there is a woman reading the comments at 2 in the morning, wondering if it's too late for her. She doesn't know you. She will never meet you, but she will read what you write. So if something in this season is calling you, leave one word below. Begin. And if you feel inclined, tell us which of the 3 doors so far you need to enter. Not just for you, for her. One word that says, a woman like you was here, and she decided it wasn't too late. Your word will be seen. It will matter to her. That is how we build this, one seeker leaving a lamp lit for the next. And if this video has given you something worth keeping, a like is a small mark that something here landed. It helps more women find their way up this path. And whenever you're ready for more ways I can walk with you beyond this video, they're gathered in the description and in the pinned comment just below. Everything is there. No hurry at all. Now, Wren's 4th door, because there is a bell in Emberhollow that answers questions, and most of us have been ringing it wrong for years. The 4th keeper lives in the bell tower, and the bell she keeps is old and strange. Whatever question is rung into it, the bell answers, faithfully, every time. The bell ringer let Wren try it. Wren, without thinking, because it was the question she carried everywhere, rang. Why am I always behind? And the bell answered. It told back 100 proofs, the career pause, the years given to everyone else, the friend with the finished house, on and on, toll after toll, every piece of evidence it could find. The bell was not cruel. The bell was thorough. The bell ringer stopped the rope with one hand. The bell answers any question it is asked, she said. It does not check whether the question deserves an answer. Ring a cruel question, and it will ring you back 100 cruelties, all of them true-sounding. Now ask it something worth answering. And she taught Wren to ring. What is one true step I can take today? One toll. Clear. Done. The bell answers whatever question you ring into it. This is not a fable trick. It is one of the best established findings in modern psychology. David Burns, in Feeling Good, the book that carried cognitive behavioral therapy into millions of ordinary homes, showed that the mind is an answering instrument. Ask it, why am I such a failure? And it will not challenge the premise. It will search obediently for evidence, and it will find some, because a search that determined always finds something. The question smuggles in the verdict, but the machinery works exactly as well in the other direction. What would I try if I trusted myself a little more? What went right today? What is one true step? Same bell, same faithful answering, entirely different life. So the 4th practice, catch the cruel questions. You'll recognize them now. They're the ones that ring 100 tolls. Why am I always behind? What's wrong with me? Why does it come so easily to everyone else? They have a sound, those questions. They usually ring at 2 in the morning, or in the car after a conversation, or in the long pause after someone else's good news. When you hear one start, you don't have to win the argument. Just take the rope gently out of its hands and ring a different question. Out loud if you can, because spoken questions ring truer than thought ones. What is one true step today? What went right today that I made happen? What would I try this season if I trusted myself a little more? Keep your 3 best swapped questions on the first page of your journal, where you'll see them every day. The bell doesn't care which questions it answers. That was always your choice. It just never felt like one until someone said so. Which leaves the question of where to aim those better questions. Because the 5th keeper owns only one field, and she is the freest woman in Emberhollow. The 5th door was a farm gate, and beyond it stood a keeper leaning on it, looking out at 2 fields. The near field was hers, tended, golden, and honestly a little unruly at the edges, the way real things are. The far field lay under its own weather, and the keeper told Wren about the seeker who once lived here before her, who spent whole years at this gate, watching the far field, worrying its storms, resenting its rain, planning in her head how she would run it better. And all that time, her own field waited behind her, half planted. The far field, the keeper said, belongs to other people, their opinions of you, their choices. The past, that's far field too, every acre of it. You can pour your one life out at this gate watching whether you cannot change, or you can turn around. One field is yours to tend. The weather over the far field never was. Stephen Covey put this at the very center of the 7 habits of highly effective people, the circle of concern and the circle of influence. Everything you worry about lives in the wide circle of concern. Only some of it sits inside the smaller circle of what you can actually affect. And here is his finding, and it is worth the whole book. The women who spend their energy inside the small circle watch it grow. The ones who pour it into the wide circle watch their actual power shrink, while the far field takes everything and gives nothing back. The practice is 1 page in your journal, 2 columns. Left, mine to tend, my next step, my words, my mornings, my season. Right, not my field, her opinion, his choices, what happened in 2014. And I want to be gentle and specific here, because at this stage of life the far field is crowded. Grown children's decisions, you raise them. How they live now is their field. The way a marriage ended, or a career did. The friend who went silent and never said why. The body's timetable. The versions of you that other people are still carrying around from 20 years ago, and you trying to correct them in your head. Some of these you have watered for decades, faithfully, in the dark, and it has cost you whole harvests of your own. Be honest with the page. Some things will sit down in that right-hand column of not my field with a weight you can physically feel leaving your shoulders. And every time you set one down, notice where the freed-up energy goes. It goes home. Into the soil in your own field, where spring is quietly being prepared. Wren stood at that gate a long time with one particular sorrow, and I'd wager you can name one sorrow for yourself. And then she turned around, and the innkeeper's promise came true. The last door found her. On the morning of the 59th day, a letter was under Wren's door, sealed and unsigned. It said only, "The last door is ready for you. You have already seen it. Come at dusk." So at dusk, Wren walked the lanes of Emberhollow, past the walled garden, past the Mapmaker's lamplit window, past the mirrors and the bell tower and the 2 quiet fields, rehearsing at every turn what the last door might be. A tower, she thought, a vault, something worthy of being last. The lane circled back and ended at her own cottage, the one she had lived in all season, and the door stood open, firelight on the step, and a woman she half recognized was tending the hearth inside. Some of you have met this keeper before, in another story I told, Maeve, the hearth keeper, who teaches the women of Emberhollow the rule of the banked ember. She looked up at Wren in the doorway, and she said, "You've been asking every keeper in the village whether it's too late for you. There was never anything behind this door but your own hearth. The last door is never in the village, love. It is the front door of the woman who finally comes home to herself." She sat Wren down at her own hearth, and Wren saw that while she had been out walking the season, someone had kept the fire banked for her all this time, under its blanket of ash, a small, patient coal waiting. And then Maeve taught her the sixth practice, and it is the smallest and the strongest of them all. One kept promise a day. One. So small it's almost embarrassing. One line in the journal before bed, one glass of water, one conscious breath, 5 seconds at the mirror. Maeve is strict about the size, and here is why. Every promise you make to yourself and break is a small proof, filed away in an archive, that your word to yourself means nothing, and most of us have decades of those filings. You do not close that archive with a grand vow. Grand vows are how the archive grew. You close it the way a fire is kept, one coal, kept alive, every day. Because self-trust, the thing Wren actually came looking for, the thing every woman who whispers, "Is it too late?" has actually lost, is not rebuilt by a gesture. It is banked like an ember, one small kept promise at a time, each one proof laid quietly on the pile, that your own word to yourself is good again. Jordan Peterson puts 2 rules beside each other in his book, 12 Rules for Life, that belong to this hearth. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. You would never let a woman you loved break every promise she made to herself and call it nothing. And compare yourself to who you were yesterday, never to who someone else is today. Yesterday, Wren. That is the only measure allowed at this hearth. And remember Lally's research from the first door. 66 days is what it takes for a practice to stop costing willpower and start carrying you. That is why the season is the length it is. By the time the gate opens, the season has become a self. Self-trust is an ember, banked one small kept promise at a time. So there it is, the whole quiet season. And gathered into one day, it is almost nothing at all. Look how small it is. Morning. Meet your eyes in the mirror and greet her kindly. Through the day, when the old cruel question starts to ring, swap the bell, one true step, and spend yourself on your own field, not the far one. One conscious breath, fully attended. Evening. One line of the old map questioned in your journal once a week. One small promise kept and noted. And the last words before sleep, true and kind, to the woman in the glass. All of it inside one walled season, 66 days, one line ready for the village, sealed with the ember rule. And hear this, because I mean it. You do not have to remember any of this. It is all written out below this video. The whole season, every practice, everything the keepers gave Wren. In the description and the pinned comment, waiting for whenever you're ready. You were never meant to take notes tonight. You were meant to recognize something. Now, one honest thing, kindly, because you know I'll always give you one. No one is going to hand you this season. The world will not go quiet on its own. You will have to close the gate yourself, and nobody will applaud when you do, because, remember the walled garden, nobody can see the tending. There will be evenings when you ring the old bell out of pure habit, and mornings when the mirror gets the old sentence instead of the new one. That doesn't disqualify you. That was never the test. The season isn't passed by doing it perfectly. It's passed by coming back. The next morning, the next breath, the next small promise. Late is not failure, and neither is Tuesday's stumble. And if you feel overwhelmed thinking about the 6 doors, just choose one and begin. Choose whichever resonates with you today. Sometimes you don't need all 6 doors, and sometimes you just need a little grace for yourself as you work through them in your own time and in your own order. Trust yourself, my friend. You know what you need. And a season from now, I want you to see her. Wren, at her own gate, in the spring. She is not a different woman. That was never what the season was for. She is the same woman with the noise lowered and the map corrected. The same woman, uncovered. She holds her own gaze in the mirror now, out of simple friendship. Her journal has a page of cliffs that turned out to be bridges, and when a neighbour stops at the wall and says, "It all happened so suddenly for you," Wren only smiles. Because you know now, and she knows, the village only ever sees the spring. That woman is not someone you have to become. She is who you already are, underneath all that you have been carrying. The season just lets her see it clearly. If tonight found you standing at one particular door, the garden, the map, the mirror, the bell, the fields, or the hearth, then a video will appear beside me now. Let that be the next part of the path you walk, and everything else I spoke of is below whenever you're ready. Until then, seekers, walk gently, be kind, and remember, you are already enough. The best self you seek is already inside you.